My topic is safe workplace solution best practices. May I proceed now?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Learning objectives. Learning objectives discuss first the risk, hazard, hierarchy of control, and how to create a safe workplace best practices. And explain the principle of elimination, substitution, engineering, administrative, and PPE in controlling workplace safety and health hazards. First of all, what is risk? Risk is a likelihood that hazard will cause harm and combination of severity of injury, damage, or loss that might foreseeable occur. It's a combination of likelihood and severity. And what is a hazard? A hazard is a potential source of harm to a worker. Can be harmed by safety hazard, can cause injury or accident, or health hazard, which are exposure. Nowadays, our COVID-19 is also a health hazard, more on biological hazard. Then, what is the hierarchy of control? Hierarchy of controls, first, the elimination, physically removed by the hazard substitution, where replace all the hazards, engineering controls, isolate people from the hazard, administrative controls, changes way people work, and PPE to protect the workers, personal protective equipment. With this hierarchy of control, we can assure some best practices we can implement in our workplace, safe workplace for this hierarchy of control. First of all, the elimination. What is an elimination? It's a process of removing the hazard. It removed from the workplace. And it is the most effective way to control a risk because the hazard is no longer present. And prepared way to control a hazard and should be used whenever it's possible. Some best of practices here in elimination, for example, is the manual painting to automatic painting. We remove hazard from this process. Before manual painting, we have workers who paint, but later on, automatic painting, no workers, only ratios. And these are some best practices. We use extended tools for eliminate the working at heights, especially when we are in painting in our home. Material delivered cut in size. Before, we use stamping process to cut our materials, and cordless equipment for the trailing cables. Before, we need to have a very long cable to have a cordless to have a equipment, but later on we have cordless battery operated for our equipment. Next is substitution. What is a substitution? Involves changing chemical substance or process with less hazardous or harmful one. And factors to be considered in substitution. First, we know hazard assessment. We need to assess our hazard in the workplace. It is effectiveness, compatibility with our safe workplace, with existing control measures, and the waste disposal or our debris. for this substitution. And some of the best practices for substitution, replacing ladders with towers, scaffolds, or gondola, especially when we have a working at heights. 10th floor, 20th floor, we need a scaffold or gondola or supported scaffold. When substituting a hazardous chemical with a safer alternative, nowadays we use water-based paint, but before we use some solvent-based paint, especially when a hardener and also some solvent mix up with the solvent base. While now, water-based is more efficient and most not hazardous, not totally hazardous chemical. And changing high-level vibrating equipment from a newer. Before, we have some old machines to be operated. Some have many hazards, possible safety hazards and health hazards that can cause to our employees and workers. But nowadays, we have new machines, safer and less vibration or less hazards in the workplace. The next is engineering control. We have some examples, best practices for engineering control. First is isolation and containment. We contain the sources of the hazard by placing the hazardous substances in a sealed vessel or system to create a barrier between a hazard and the workers. And nowadays, we have modification, redesign, and automation, especially our industrial engineers, with changes the physical operating condition without changing the chemical or process. And the ventilation is the process of supplying or removing air by natural or mechanical means and from any spaces. We have sample for our engineering control. Nowadays, we use shielding in the office, canteen, for protection for our health hazard, especially in the COVID-19 workplace solutions. Then separate storage from the process, our chemicals, our cleaning agents. They have some storage device. And the machine guarding. When we have a machines in our workplace, we need that to be guarded so that no safety hazard involved in that process. Portable aircon to one process to another, especially the ventilation included in our portable aircon. To process at the same time, automotive industry, especially the Industrial Revolution 4.0, we use some robotics on our process. The CCTV cameras included for our contact tracings in our workplace, our employees. The natural ventilation in our workplace, it is an essential, especially nowadays in our COVID-19 prevention. It depends on the window we use. We use fixed window, owning window, sliding window, or an alter louver windows. The most effective window right now is the alter louver. It's almost 90% fresh air from the outside going to the inside. Then next is the mechanical ventilation. We use mechanical fans. We use mechanical air distribution systems. It's essential, especially in the office, whereas we need to have to circulate the air in our office, in our workplace. The next is the local exhaust ventilation. A typical local exhaust ventilation, we have the capture hood, we have the branch or duct, air cleaning device, the fan, and the exhaust stack. To capture hood, to capture all the unnecessary air contaminants like carbon dioxide. And the duct going to air cleaning device, they clean our air, then the fan going to outside. This is the best practices of local exhaust ventilations. The next is the administrative control. For administrative control, we use company manuals, company policies, memorandums. In our company, we have some policies, especially with the security, safety, and health, education and training to our employees, including the COVID-19 preventions and controls, the medical surveillance, not only for the physical examination, but also the RT-PCR tests included in our medical surveillance, housekeeping and maintenance. We use good housekeeping, 5S, and maintenance in our area, in our office. Then legal and other requirements such as in IATF, DOH, DOLE, including all legal and regulatory requirements, and our occupational safety and health programs, including the directive orders by the Department of Labor and Employment, including all programs here. For the best practices, first, we all know the physical distancing observed all the time. Especially today, we need to have more active with physical distancing. Then frequently hand washing should be mandatory also in our workplace, especially when we have some other tasks to do. Then disinfection process, whether we have some positive in RT-PCR tests or positive in our COVID testing, we need to have disinfection process. And should open maximize ventilation, whether it is natural ventilation or mechanical ventilation. Education and training. We need to educate, we need to train, we need to elaborate all existing controls, especially in COVID-19. Our employees must know the protection, the implementation of our program in COVID-19. Company manuals, policy, regulations, including the flexible working arrangement, our work from home, restriction of mass gathering, staggered meal schedule, the health declaration, and video conferencing for meetings, including the best practices during in a pandemic area. Then warning signs, especially when we have machines, lockout, tagout, and our OSHP standard, our occupational safety and health standard. The last resort is the personal protective equipment or PPE. In PPE, we have dust, gas respirator, safety goggles, spectacles, face shields, earplug, aprons, safety shoes, safety helmet, and safety gloves. Right now, we have the practices for the respiratory filter definition with N series, our N88 face mask, our N95 mask. These are the N series filters. Then the R series filters, like gas mask and respirator. We have some cartridge. And the P series, the N95 with bulb. Some medical use, this P series of our respirators. Next is the hearing protection, the earplug. Some of our earplug have foam earplug and PVCs. And the ear muffs, much protection, especially for our noise in our workplace. Then foot leg protection in our legs or in our foot. We need to protect, and also the safety helmet or hat for the impact helmets and the electrical. Then we have also the eye and face protection, like the safety spectacle, the goggles, welding shields, and safe face shield. These are most essential also in our COVID-19 face shield. Then conclusion, an effective way of controlling safety hazard is the proper selection and implementation of elimination, substitution, engineering, administrative control, and the use of PPE. Maraming salamat po for sharing my ideas, especially the best practices. Thank you.